Hello, and welcome to my group usability test report. Our group chose to look at the Google Suite for the purposes of collaboration within the workplace. So, just to give you all a quick overview of what I'll be taking you through, there'll be a little bit of background on the what the Google Suite is really, and then I'll get into our goals and objectives. So, really, why we felt the need for this research. Next, I'll detail the parameters we use when selecting our participants. Then I'll go into how or the methods by which we conducted this, and then take you through the results, and then a few recommendations based on these results for how the Google Suite could be improved. And next, further research and next steps as to where to go next. How do we put this research to good use and put it into effect? So, first of all, what is the Google Suite? And it is basically a collection of productivity applications that live within the cloud. So the main benefit to this, or the main selling point really, is that users are able to access these applications from any device, anywhere really that you have Wi-Fi and can get online. So these applications include Gmail, GChat, and then Google Calendar for the purposes of scheduling and communicating. And then there's the Google Drive for storage, and then Google Docs, Sheets, Slides, and Forms, which are all for collaborative purposes. I will now get into our goals and objectives. The comparison between the Microsoft Office, or the platform of Microsoft, compared to the Google Suite. So this arose within our group because we were just chatting about how within each of our workplaces, either we use, my job personally, I use Google Suite, and other members of my team had Microsoft Outlook as their email, and Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, etc. And they didn't really have to use Google Suite. So I just found that interesting, and so we really wanted to dive into how two different suites affect workflow. Are all of the applications simple to use? And really we wanted to just find out what the pain points were for users who are engaging with Google Suite. And so our participant, they needed to be business professionals between 18 and 54. They needed to work in a field that required collaboration with their coworkers, and really preferably they would have little to no experience with the Google Suite. So perhaps their workplace used the Office Suite. We decided to do a task-based usability test that included 4 tasks, and our interviews were performed in person and or remotely. So we really got to have that face-to-face communication and feedback, which was important. Our participants would need to collaborate with the interviewer via sharing their screen and communication. And our interviews lasted between 25 and 35 minutes. So the first task, we had everyone create a Google Calendar invite and then send it out. And the results we got from this were, first of all, that it was a straightforward process, but only under the contingency that once you got to the Google Calendar platform, it was pretty intuitive to use. But many of our users had difficulty finding the Google Calendar icon within the interface. And so if it was more streamlined and clearly labeled, perhaps this wouldn't have been such an issue. So one of our participants said, I wish there was something where it was like, bam, calendar, because I really don't know how to do this. And it wasn't clear as a new user how to do this. So I felt like that really captured the need for a more clear labeling process. Despite that, once users got into the application, they were able to send off their invite quite smoothly, but it seemed that there just needed to be a bit of or basic knowledge around the Google Suite in order to have a seamless experience with it, which is not ideal for new users. And the same participant actually said it's pretty straightforward. I assume I go to create just to make their calendar invite. So if everything was as clearly labeled as this, perhaps there wouldn't be as much confusion. And I'll get a bit more into the organization of how things are laid out within the suite shortly. The next one, we were looking at how users were able to use Google Docs, Slides, and Sheets, and we found that even users that use Microsoft within their workplace found Google Docs and Slides, etc., to be ideal for the purposes of collaboration, because they noted that it's definitely an advantage to be able to work simultaneously on the same document. And it's nice that Google Suite automatically saves, tracks changes, and actually has version histories. So all of this lives within that the Google Doc that you're using in the cloud. So active users can also chat and collaborate while they're working on the same document. Todd, one of our participants, said this method would definitely save time for collaborative and running documents compared to Microsoft Excel, and he was a user that uses Microsoft within his workplace. Also, users noticed that it was not really synchronized. So when they were trying to upload, let's say, a Microsoft PowerPoint into Google Slides, the formatting, there was discrepancies in how it looked. And this just really limits user potential. You really lose a whole user pool without that synchronization. So just an area for improvement there, which I'll get into. And then the Google Drives, users unanimously found that it really maximized the accessibility, because you can work on documents at any time and really at any computer, which is revolutionary. Really provides a lot of freedom for users, reduces the challenges associated with working remotely, and you can have your documents be secure by only permitting use for certain users. And it's pretty straightforward to use, as one of our participants noted. And it doesn't make sense that my most recent document isn't the first one here, and you'd think it would be right there. So the same user found that the organization, as I mentioned, was not as intuitive as they would have liked. So that takes me right into my recommendations. So the first one I've noted, that's what the arrow is pointing to, is not the most recent document that's been accessed. And so this is confusing unanimously, really, by all of our participants. And so the recommendation here is to increase the personalization for preferences in terms of how users want to view and organize their interface, because I'm sure this varies across participants and really across users. And then the next recommendation is to improve the synchronicity between Microsoft and Google to increase user potential and really that user pool. And so I've just highlighted areas where the formatting was altered heavily, actually, by trying to combine the two or upload a Microsoft PowerPoint into the Google Slides. And finally, I've indicated where the most confusing application icons were. So just that the little array of dots wasn't found to be indicative of where all of the Google applications live. So maybe there's room for improvement there. And so areas of further research I thought were really that we could look more so into the pros and cons of using Google versus Microsoft in a workplace setting from an HR perspective. So really, why do some offices use one or the other? Really curious about that, actually, as to how that decision is made and what's prioritized when choosing one versus the other to implement across the organization. And how can organizations enable a more seamless transition and simultaneous workflow involving both productivity suites? So if there is a need to use both within a workplace, how can teams be organized or structured more seamlessly to have that transition be smooth for the teams and the employees involved? And the next steps I saw to be, so one, firstly, to investigate the workplace best practices, and to then consult the HR representatives in in-person interviews, so to get that face-to-face contact and feedback and have that conversation about what is important and what do they prioritize when picking one productivity suite over the other. Next would be to survey the employees to understand actual user preferences. So what do the employees prioritize? What makes their user experience more seamless? And finally, to conduct another usability test similar to this one to measure how the changes were implemented and how well they actually worked to accomplish a more seamless user experience. And that's about it. Thank you very much.